Greetings, seekers of forgotten truths. I am your chronicler this evening, and if the mysteries we unveil tonight resonate within your spirit, I invite you to like this tale and subscribe for more legends lost to time. In the shadowed archives, beneath Coruscant, where the weight of 10,000 years presses down like ancient stone, there lies a holocron that few dare activate. Its crystalline surface pulses with memories of a man who walked between worlds, who held nobility in one hand and damnation in the other. This is the complete chronicle of Count Dooku, but not as history remembers him. This is the truth that the Jedi buried, the Republic denied, and the Empire erased. Listen now to a moment that changed the fate of countless worlds. The location is a hidden chamber on Sereno, carved from black marble and lit by the cold glow of ancient Sith artifacts. The year is 20 BBY, mere months before the Republic's fall. A figure kneels in the center of this unholy sanctum, his elegant robes pooled around him like spilled blood. Count Dooku, once the most revered Jedi Master of his generation, now apprentice to the galaxy's greatest evil. But his words on this night reveal something that will shatter everything you believe you know about his fall. "Master Sidious," he whispers, his cultured voice heavy with anguish, "I have seen the future through the Force. The path we walk leads not to salvation, but to endless tyranny. The galaxy will burn for 1,000 generations because of what we are about to unleash. Tell me there is still another way. Tell me that when the Republic falls, something better will rise from its ashes." The response comes as cold laughter echoing from the shadows. "My dear apprentice, did you truly believe that destroying the corrupt Republic would be without cost? Did you think the galaxy could be cleansed without first being purged in fire?" Dooku's reply carries the weight of terrible understanding. "Then I have become the very monster I sought to destroy, and there is no path back to the light. What drove this noble soul to such depths? What secret knowledge transformed the galaxy's greatest protector into its most dangerous threat? Tonight, we trace the complete journey of a man who sacrificed everything, including his own soul, in a desperate gamble to save a galaxy that may not have deserved saving. Word count, 782 words. You stand now in the marble halls of the Jedi Temple, but not as they exist in your time. The Force has carried you back 8 decades to an era when the Republic still gleamed with hope and the Jedi walked as guardians of peace. Here, in these sacred corridors where countless generations have sought wisdom, you begin your investigation into the most complex mystery in galactic history. The temple archives stretch before you like a cathedral of knowledge. They're blue-white, holocrons casting ethereal light across towering shelves. Ancient Jedi texts float in containment fields, their pages turned by invisible hands, as if the Force itself reads their contents. The air hums with accumulated wisdom, yet something feels incomplete, as though crucial chapters have been deliberately removed from this vast library. Your guide appears from the shadows between the archives, and figure both familiar and strange. Master Yoda, but not the diminished hermit of Dagobah. This is Yoda in his prime, 900 years of accumulated knowledge burning bright in his ancient eyes. His presence in the Force feels like standing next to a star, warm and overwhelming. "Seek, you do, the truth about young Dooku," Yoda says, his voice carrying notes of sadness that seem to echo through the marble halls. Pain his story brings me, pride he was to us, brightest of his generation, strongest in the force, since Master Revan walked these halls. The old master leads you deeper into the archives, past sections restricted to all but the most senior Jedi. Here the very air feels heavier, charged with secrets and half-spoken truths. Yoda's Geimer stick taps against the polished floor, each sound reverberating like a countdown to revelation. Born he was on Sereno, to nobility ancient beyond measure. Bloodline traced back to the first kings of that world, when the galaxy was young and the Force flowed like rivers through untainted souls. Brought to us as a child, but never truly left behind his heritage, he did. You pause before a massive holocron, its crystalline surface swirling with images of a young boy with piercing eyes and an expression of barely contained intensity. Even as a child, Dooku possessed a presence that seemed to bend the Force around him, drawing power and attention like a gravity well draws starlight. A second figure emerges from the deeper archives, moving with the careful steps of one who guards dangerous knowledge. She is tall and elegant, wearing robes that mark her as a keeper of Sereno's historical records. Her name is Lyra Serith, last of the planet's great archivists, and in her hands she carries documents that have been sealed for generations. The young Count was different from the moment he arrived, she explains, her voice carrying the refined accent of Sereno's nobility. Other younglings struggled with homesickness, with leaving behind family and familiar comforts. But Dooku seemed to carry his entire world with him, as if he had never truly left Sereno at all. The documents she shares reveal a pattern that would define Dooku's entire life. While other Padawans focused solely on Jedi teachings, young Dooku consumed knowledge from across the galaxy. He studied political theory alongside lightsaber forms, learned the histories of fallen civilizations while mastering Force techniques. His instructors praised his brilliance but noted something troubling in their reports. Questions everything he does, reads one assessment from his early training. Challenges not just technique, but philosophy itself. Asks why the Jedi serve the Republic, not whether they should. Dangerous thinking, but born from genuine desire to understand. Yoda's expression grows more troubled as he recalls those early years. Saw in him great potential we did, but also great danger, like standing beside a forge he was, capable of creating wonders, but also of burning everything he touched. The archives reveal more as you delve deeper, records of Dooku's exceptional skill with Form 2 lightsaber combat, his natural ability to influence minds through the Force, his unprecedented success in diplomatic missions. But woven through these achievements are subtle warnings, observations that would prove prophetic. One report from Master Tem Cerulean, Dooku's own master, carries particular weight. My Padawan possesses a nobility of spirit that elevates everything. He touches, but also a pride that could prove his undoing. He sees corruption and injustice with perfect clarity, but I fear his solutions may be as extreme as the problems he seeks to solve. As the Force-guided tour of the archives continues, you begin to sense something that the historical records cannot capture. In the very stones of the temple, in the accumulated echoes of countless conversations and training sessions, there lingers the impression of a young man wrestling with questions that had no easy answers. The mystery of Dooku's fall begins here, in these halls of learning, where the galaxy's most noble heart first encountered truths too terrible to bear. The Force whispers to you now, calling you away from the sterile halls of the temple toward a world where mist clings to ancient mountains and nobility flows as naturally as mountain streams. Sereno awaits, and with it, the the moment when young Dooku truly began his journey toward destiny. You find yourself standing in the grand library of House Dooku, where crystalline windows cast rainbow patterns across floors of polished obsidian. The very air here tastes different than the temple, charged not with the collective wisdom of thousands, but with the concentrated power of a single bloodline stretching back millennia. Here, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of his ancestors, the young Jedi Knight has returned home for the first time since his childhood. Dooku moves through these halls like a man discovering himself. Gone is the uncertain Padawan questioning his place in the galaxy. In his ancestral home, he carries himself with the natural authority of born nobility, yet something deeper stirs within him. The Force flows differently here, stronger somehow, as if Sereno itself amplifies his connection to the cosmic energy that binds all things. Master Yoda appears beside you, his presence a gentle ripple in the Force. Accept the mission he did, but not for glory or advancement. Something else drew him back to Sereno, something the Council could not understand. The mission seems simple enough on the surface. Pirates have been raiding the Outer Rim trade. Roots and several noble houses have requested Jedi intervention. The Republic Senate, eager to maintain good relations with the wealthy core worlds, dispatched their most diplomatically skilled knight. What they did not anticipate was how deeply this homecoming would affect the man they sent. In the private chambers of his family estate, Dooku studies reports that paint a picture far more complex than simple piracy. These are not random criminals seeking easy profit. The attacks follow patterns, target specific shipments, avoid certain systems entirely. Someone with intimate knowledge of galactic commerce is orchestrating these raids, but their ultimate goal remains hidden. "My lord," comes a voice from the chamber's entrance. An elderly Sereno retainer, bent with age but sharp of eye, carries a sealed data pad. "The archives you requested. Your great-grandfather's private records from his time as senator." The records reveal secrets that no Jedi training could have prepared Dooku for. His ancestor had served in the Galactic Senate during a period of unprecedented corruption when entire star systems were bought and sold like commodities. The private journals speak of bribes that could purchase fleets, of senators who served corporate interests over their constituents, of a republic already rotting from within, even as it projected strength to the galaxy. But more disturbing still are the references to something called the Sith Contingency, a plan supposedly destroyed with the ancient Sith Empire, but whose echoes his great-grandfather detected in the Senate's shadows. The journal entries speak of senators who seemed to know too much, who pushed for policies that weakened the Republic while strengthening certain corporate interests. "The corruption runs deeper than anyone suspects," Dooku reads aloud, his voice carrying the weight of terrible understanding. "What we call politics is merely the surface layer of something far more insidious. Someone has been playing a game that spans centuries, moving pieces we cannot even see." As days pass on Sereno, Dooku begins to see connections that his Jedi training had taught him to ignore. The pirates are not criminals but mercenaries, funded by the same corporate interests that his great-grandfather had suspected of Sith influence. The raids serve multiple purposes. They destabilize trade routes, create demand for increased security contracts, and generate support for policies that centralize power in the Republic's executive branch. The young Jedi finds himself walking the gardens of his ancestral home at night, when the twin moons cast everything in silver light, and the Force flows like music through the mountain air. Here, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of his bloodline and the natural power of his world, he begins to understand that his true quest is not to stop a few pirates, but to uncover a conspiracy that threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. Yet even as this knowledge burns within him like a beacon, he feels the pull of duty calling him back to Coruscant. The Council expects results, the Senate demands action, and the Republic continues its slow slide toward the abyss, while its guardians remain blind to the danger. Standing in his great-grandfather's study, surrounded by centuries of carefully preserved evidence, Dooku makes a choice that will echo through history. He will return to the Council, but not as the obedient knight they expect. He will carry with him questions that demand answers, truths that require acknowledgement, and a determination to save the Republic, even if it means challenging the very institutions he has sworn to serve. The Force trembles around him as he seals his ancestors' records, as if recognizing that this moment marks the true beginning of a journey that will reshape the galaxy itself. The council chambers feel different when Dooku returns from Sereno. The circular room that once represented wisdom and harmony now seems to pulse with unspoken tensions. 12 of the galaxy's most powerful Jedi sit in their high-backed chairs, their faces masks of serene contemplation. But the Force carries undercurrents of concern that even their legendary discipline cannot entirely suppress. "Successful your mission was," Master Yoda begins, his ancient voice carrying notes of both praise and question. "Pirates defeated, trade routes secured, but changed you seem, young Dooku. Troubled by something beyond mere criminals, are you?" Dooku stands in the center of the chamber, his posture reflecting the nobility he discovered on his homeworld. The datapad containing his great-grandfather's records weighs heavily in his robes, its secrets burning like a brand against his chest. Around him, the greatest Jedi Masters of the age wait for his report, unaware that he carries evidence of a conspiracy that could shatter their understanding of the galaxy. "Masters," he begins, his cultured voice carrying new authority. "The pirate raids were merely symptoms of a far greater disease. I have uncovered evidence of systematic corruption that reaches into the highest levels of the Republic Senate. Corporate interests are manipulating policy, purchasing votes, and engineering crises to consolidate power." Master Windu leans forward, his dark eyes sharp with interest. "These are serious accusations, Knight Dooku. What evidence supports such claims?" The moment hangs in the Force, like a blade balanced on its edge. Dooku feels the weight of destiny pressing down upon him, the knowledge that his next words will set in motion events that cannot be undone. Behind him, you sense the presence of something vast and patient, a shadow that has been waiting centuries for this precise moment. "My family's archives contain detailed records spanning 3 centuries, Dooku continues, producing the sealed datapad. Senator after senator describes the same patterns: mysterious benefactors funding campaigns, corporate representatives who seem to know Republic policy before it's announced, voting blocs that shift in ways that serve no visible constituency but consistently strengthen certain business interests. The Council exchanges glances, their connection through the Force carrying conversations too subtle for words. Master Plo Koon speaks first, his mechanical voice measured and careful. "Corruption in the Senate is not unknown to us, Knight Dooku, but these institutions have served the galaxy for 1,000 years. Reform comes slowly, but it comes." "With respect, Master Plo," Dooku replies, and his voice carries an edge that causes several masters to shift uncomfortably. "Slow reform may be a luxury we cannot afford. The evidence suggests coordinated manipulation spanning generations. This is not mere corruption, but systematic subversion of the Republic itself." Master Yoda's ears droop slightly, and ancient sadness enters his voice. "Dark thoughts these are. lead to fear, they can. And fear leads to the dark side. The words strike Dooku like a physical blow. In all his years of training, he has never heard his questions dismissed so casually, his genuine concerns reduced to potential weakness. The force around him darkens, not with malevolence, but with the terrible isolation of one who sees clearly while others choose blindness. "I am not afraid, Master Yoda," he says quietly. "I am concerned. There is a difference." Master Mace Windu's expression hardens. "The distinction may be smaller than you believe, Knight Dooku. The path from concern to obsession, from questioning to conspiracy, is shorter than many realize. We have seen Jedi fall to such thinking before." The chamber falls silent, except for the whisper of recycled air and the distant hum of Coruscant's endless traffic. Dooku stands alone in the center of the circle, surrounded by beings he has respected and served his entire adult life, yet feeling more isolated than ever before. The records in his hands contain proof of systematic corruption that threatens everything they claim to protect, yet they speak of his concerns as symptoms of potential darkness. "Then what would you have me do?" he asks, and his voice carries the weight of a man confronting the limits of his faith. "Ignore what I have discovered? Pretend that these patterns do not exist? Allow the Republic to continue its slide toward collapse while we meditate on the mysteries of the Force?" Master Yoda rises from his chair, his Geimer stick tapping against the polished floor as he approaches. When he speaks, his voice carries 9 centuries of accumulated wisdom and an equal measure of regret. Investigate further you may, but careful you must be. The line between seeking truth and creating darkness is thinner than spider's silk. Many who meant well have crossed it without knowing. As the council session ends and the masters file out in contemplative silence, Dooku remains in the center of the chamber. The datapad in his hands no longer feels like evidence but like a burden, and for the first time in his life, he wonders if the greatest enemy of truth might not be lies, but the unwillingness of good people to confront uncomfortable realities. The months following the council meeting pass like a slow-burning fever through Dooku's mind. He throws himself into his duties with renewed vigor, accepting every diplomatic mission, every investigation, every opportunity to peer beneath the polished surface of Republic governance. What he discovers validates his worst fears while simultaneously isolating him further from his fellow Jedi. On Malastare, he uncovers evidence of senators receiving payments from fuel cartels in exchange for favorable taxation policies. On Sullust, corporate representatives boast openly about their ability to influence Republic military contracts. On Coruscant itself, he follows financial records that lead from legitimate businesses through a maze of shell companies to accounts that simply vanish into bureaucratic shadows. Each revelation should bring satisfaction, the vindication of a theory proven correct. Instead, Dooku finds himself trapped in a web of corruption so vast and intricate that exposing one strand only reveals 10 others. Worse still, his attempts to share these discoveries with the Council are met with increasing concern about his mental state rather than alarm about the Republic's condition. Knight Dooku has become obsessed, he overhears Master Windu telling Yoda in the temple corridors. His reports grow more elaborate, his theories more complex. He sees conspiracy, where there may be simple incompetence. Standing in the shadows beyond their conversation, Dooku feels something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, not yet, but the terrible clarity that comes when one realizes they stand completely alone. The evidence he has gathered could fill a dozen datacrons, yet his own brothers in the Force dismiss it as the paranoid fantasies of an unbalanced mind. The breaking point comes during a mission to Eriadu, where Republic forces are investigating mysterious attacks on civilian transports. The official reports blame separatist sympathizers, but Dooku's investigation reveals a different truth. The attacks are being carried out by mercenaries funded through the same shadowy financial networks he has been tracking for months. In a secure chamber beneath Eriadu's capital, he finally finds what he has been seeking without knowing it. A communications array hidden behind legitimate business fronts, broadcasting coded signals to dozens of star systems across the outer rim. The encryption is unlike anything in Republic databases, ancient and sophisticated, carrying echoes of techniques he recognizes from his studies of pre-Republic civilizations. As he works to decode the transmissions, fragments of conversation emerge from the static. References to the Master's plan, mentions of 1,000 years of patience, and most chilling of all, detailed discussions of Republic military capabilities and Jedi deployment patterns. Someone has been watching the Republic's defenders with intimate knowledge of their strengths and weaknesses. The final transmission he decodes carries coordinates and a single phrase that stops his blood. The fallen Jedi approaches his destiny. Prepare the way for his arrival. Dooku stares at the decoded message for long minutes, his mind racing through implications that threaten to shatter his sanity. Someone has been orchestrating events not just around the Republic, but around him personally. His missions, his discoveries, even his growing isolation from the Council, all part of a larger pattern he is only now beginning to perceive. He returns to Coruscant with evidence that should mobilize the entire Jedi Order, proof of a conspiracy that reaches back generations and threatens the foundation of galactic civilization. Yet, when he presents his findings to the Council, their response crushes the last of his faith in their wisdom. Circumstantial at best, Master Windu declares after reviewing the decoded transmissions. These could be the communications of any criminal organization. Your interpretation assumes coordination and planning on a scale that defies belief. Furthermore, adds Master Ki-Adi-Mundi, your methods grow increasingly questionable. Breaking into private communications, following financial records without proper authorization, conducting investigations outside official channels. Such behavior suggests an unhealthy obsession with finding patterns that may not exist. Yoda's voice carries infinite sadness when he speaks. Worried about you we are, young Dooku. Consumed by shadows, you have become. Step back from this path you must, before lose yourself entirely. You do. The irony is not lost on him. The very qualities that made him an exceptional Jedi, his analytical mind, his unwillingness to accept easy answers, his dedication to uncovering truth, have become evidence of his unfitness for service. The council that trained him to question and investigate now condemns him for questioning and investigating too thoroughly. As he leaves the council chambers for what he suspects may be the last time, Dooku carries with him not just evidence of galactic conspiracy, but the terrible knowledge that those charged with protecting the Republic are either complicit in its corruption or too willfully blind to acknowledge it. Walking through the temple corridors where he once found peace, he feels the Force itself shifting around him, no longer the warm embrace of shared purpose, but something colder and more solitary. For the first time in his life, he truly understands what it means to stand alone against the darkness, even when that darkness wears the face of light. The Force flows differently in the abandoned sectors of Coruscant's lower levels, where the city's gleaming surface gives way to forgotten depths. Here, kilometers below the Senate Towers and Jedi Temple, Dooku walks paths that few living beings have traveled. The air tastes of rust and time, carrying echoes of civilizations that rose and fell before the Republic drew its first breath. He has been coming here for weeks now, drawn by something he cannot name. The council believes him to be on medical leave, recovering from what they diplomatically term investigative fatigue. In truth, he has never felt more alive, more attuned to currents in the Force that he never knew existed. The deeper he ventures into Coruscant's forgotten heart, the clearer these currents become. The architecture here predates Republic engineering by millennia. Massive stone blocks fitted together without mortar, carved with symbols that seem to shift when viewed directly. Dooku recognizes some of the markings from his private studies, references to power structures and cosmic forces that the modern galaxy has forgotten. This is not mere urban decay, but the remnants of something far older and more significant. His footsteps echo through corridors that were ancient when the first Jedi Temple was built. The walls themselves seem to pulse with accumulated memory, and the Force here carries whispers of conversations held in darkness, of plans laid across centuries, of patience that spans generations. He is not alone in these depths, though his companion remains hidden in shadow. "You have come far from the marble halls of your temple," a voice observes, cultured and refined, carrying notes of approval mixed with something deeper. "Further than your masters would approve, I suspect." The speaker emerges from an alcove carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Tall and elegant, wearing robes that seem to absorb light rather than reflect it, he moves with the fluid grace of one accustomed to power. His face remains partially hidden, but his presence in the Force is like standing too close to a star, overwhelming and dangerous. "I seek truth," Dooku replies, his hand instinctively moving toward his lightsaber hilt. "Whatever the cost." "Truth," the figure muses, and his laughter carries echoes that seem to resonate through the ancient stones. How refreshing to meet a Jedi who still believes such a thing exists. Your council has grown comfortable with comfortable lies, have they not? The conversation that follows spans hours, though time seems meaningless in these forgotten depths. The stranger speaks of patterns Dooku has glimpsed but never fully understood, connections between seemingly unrelated events that span centuries. He reveals knowledge of the Republic's corruption that makes Dooku's own investigations seem like a child's first steps. "The decay you have uncovered is not accidental," the figure explains, gesturing to holographic displays that materialize from hidden projectors. "Every senator purchased, every policy manipulated, every crisis engineered, serves a greater design. The Republic dies by degrees, and its guardians stand blind while shadows consume the light." The displays show financial networks that dwarf anything Dooku has discovered, spanning not just the core worlds but reaching into the unknown regions and beyond. Corporate entities that exist only on paper, controlled by trusts, managed by foundations, overseen by councils whose membership lists remain forever sealed. At the center of it all, a pattern of influence that reaches back to the Republic's founding. "Who are you?" Dooku asks, though part of him already knows the answer will change everything. "I am someone who remembers when the galaxy knew honesty," comes the reply, "when power served purpose rather than merely perpetuating itself. I am the keeper of knowledge your Jedi Council fears to acknowledge, the guardian of truths they would rather forget." The stranger moves closer, and Dooku feels the force around them shift like tectonic plates grinding against each other. This is not the warm, flowing energy he has known since childhood, but something colder, more focused, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You have seen the corruption that eats at the Republic's heart. You have witnessed your own brothers dismiss evidence rather than confront uncomfortable realities. Tell me, young seeker, what would you do to save a galaxy that refuses to save itself? The question hangs in the air like a blade, and Dooku realizes that every step of his journey has led to this moment. Every investigation, every revelation, every frustration with the Council's willful blindness has prepared him for a choice he never imagined he would face. "I would do whatever necessary," he hears himself say, and the words seem to echo through dimensions beyond the physical. Even if it meant embracing methods your training has taught you to fear? Even if salvation required you to become the very darkness you once fought? The Force trembles around them, and in its depths, Dooku glimpses visions of possible futures. Galaxies consumed by war, civilizations ground to dust beneath the boots of tyranny, stars themselves dying as corruption spreads like a cancer through space and time, but also threading through the darkness, paths that lead to something better, possibilities that require terrible sacrifices from those strong enough to make them. Standing in the depths beneath Coruscant, surrounded by the whispers of ancient power, Dooku takes the first true step on a journey that will transform him from the Republic's greatest protector into its most dangerous enemy. The revelation comes not as a single moment of understanding, but as a slow awakening that spans days in the depths beneath Coruscant. The stranger, who has revealed himself as Darth Sidious, though Dooku does not yet know that name, shares knowledge that reconstructs everything the Jedi Knight believed about galactic history. In chambers carved from living rock, surrounded by holocrons that predate the Republic itself, Dooku learns that the Sith never truly died. The rule of two, established by Darth Bane a millennium ago, ensured their survival through careful planning and infinite patience. While the Jedi believed their ancient enemies extinct, the Sith had been orchestrating the Republic's downfall. From within its own institutions, every crisis the Republic has faced in the past centuries, Sidious explains, his voice carrying the weight of terrible certainty. Every war, every economic collapse, every political scandal that weakened democratic institutions has served our greater purpose. We have been gardeners, pruning away the diseased branches so that something stronger might grow. The evidence is overwhelming, documented in records that span generations. The Stark Hyperspace War, the Kuranakian conflict, the Yinchori uprising, all manipulated by Sith influence to weaken the Republic's military while strengthening the Chancellor's emergency powers. Corporate interests that seemed to serve only profit were actually advancing a political agenda that centralized authority while undermining democratic oversight. But most shocking of all is the revelation of how deeply the conspiracy reaches into the Jedi Order itself. Not through corruption or direct influence, but through something far more insidious, the gradual transformation of the Jedi from guardians of peace into servants of political authority. Your masters speak of serving the Republic, Sidious continues, but they have forgotten that the Republic was meant to serve its citizens. They have become enforcers of the status quo, blind to the suffering their inaction perpetuates. How many worlds cry out for justice while the Jedi mediate trade disputes? Dooku feels something crack inside his chest as these words strike home. Every diplomatic mission he has undertaken, every negotiation he has mediated, has served to maintain systems that enrich the powerful while keeping the weak in their place. The Jedi Code speaks of justice and compassion, yet the Order's actions consistently support structures that prevent both. The stranger shows him recordings from Senate sessions that never appeared in official transcripts. Senators openly discussing which systems to sacrifice for political advantage, corporate representatives bidding on exclusive rights to exploit entire worlds, military leaders planning campaigns that will create profitable instability in targeted regions. All of it conducted with the implicit approval of Jedi who serve as the Republic's moral authority. "You have seen the corruption," Sidious says, his voice carrying infinite patience. "You have tried to expose it through proper channels, only to be dismissed as unstable. Tell me, after all you have witnessed, do you still believe the system can be reformed from within?" The question hangs in the recycled air of the ancient chamber, and Dooku realizes that his months of investigation have been leading to this moment of choice. Every revelation, every frustration with the Council's blindness, every sleepless night wrestling with evidence of systematic corruption has prepared him for an offer he never imagined would come. "What do you propose?" he asks, and his voice carries the weight of a man standing at the edge of an abyss. "Join me," Sidious replies simply. "Help me tear down the diseased structure that calls itself government so that something pure can rise from its ashes. Use your knowledge, your connections, your understanding of how the Republic truly functions to engineer its collapse. Save the galaxy by destroying the institutions that claim to protect it." The offer reverberates through the Force like a struck bell, carrying implications that stretch across space and time. Dooku sees visions of possible futures, the Republic continuing its slow decay until civilizations collapse under the weight of accumulated corruption or a swift, surgical destruction, followed by the rise of something stronger and more honest. "The Jedi will oppose such action," he observes, though part of him already knows the answer. "Some will," Sidious acknowledges. "Others, like yourself, will recognize the necessity, and those who cannot be convinced will be removed, just as any diseased tissue must be cut away to save the body." In the depths of Coruscant, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of the ancient Sith, Dooku confronts the most terrible truth of all, that saving the galaxy may require embracing the very methods he has spent his life opposing. The man who entered these chambers as a Jedi Knight wrestling with doubts about the Republic's future will emerge as something else entirely, carrying the weight of a choice that will reshape the destiny of countless worlds. The Force flows around. Him, no longer the warm embrace of the light, but something colder and more focused, promising power enough to tear down corrupt institutions and build something better from their ruins. For the first time in months, Dooku feels a sense of purpose that burns away all doubt. The transformation does not happen overnight. In the weeks following his encounter with Sidious, Dooku returns to his duties in the temple with a carefully maintained facade of normalcy. To his fellow Jedi, he appears to have recovered from his obsession with Republic corruption, accepting assignments with quiet efficiency and participating in council meetings with respectful attention. They cannot see the fundamental shift that has occurred within him, the way he now views every interaction through the lens of terrible new understanding. But you, guided by the Force through these pivotal moments, witness what others cannot. In the privacy of his quarters, Dooku studies materials that Sidious has provided, ancient texts that reveal the true history of galactic civilization. The Sith holocrons speak of cycles of rise and decay, of the necessity for destruction to precede renewal, of the burden carried by those strong enough to make impossible choices for the greater good. The most disturbing revelation comes through his renewed investigation of the Republic's financial networks. Armed with knowledge from his new master, Dooku begins to see patterns that had previously remained hidden. The corruption he had uncovered was not random greed, but carefully orchestrated preparation for something far more significant. Trade Federation ships massing in systems where they have no legitimate business. Banking clan representatives quietly liquidating assets and converting them to untraceable currencies. Corporate leaders who have spent decades building commercial empires suddenly displaying military ambitions that their balance sheets cannot support. Someone has been preparing the galaxy's corporate powers for war, providing them with resources and coordination that should be impossible for civilian entities to obtain. The truth hits him like a physical blow during a routine diplomatic mission to Sullust. While mediating a mining dispute, he discovers that the conflict itself is artificial, engineered to provide cover for massive military construction projects hidden in the planet's industrial sectors. Droid factories operating far beyond civilian capacity, shipyards producing vessels that violate every treaty governing corporate military assets, communications arrays sophisticated enough to coordinate fleets across multiple star systems. Most chilling of all, he finds his own mission reports from previous diplomatic assignments, annotated with strategic assessments and tactical recommendations. Someone has been using Jedi diplomatic missions to gather intelligence on planetary defenses, industrial capabilities, and political vulnerabilities. The Order's most trusted members have been unwitting scouts for a coming war. Returning to Coruscant, Dooku faces the terrible realization that the conspiracy reaches even deeper than Sidious had revealed. The separatist movement that has been growing in the Outer Rim is not a grassroots rebellion against Republic tyranny, but a carefully orchestrated tool of Sith manipulation. Corporate leaders who genuinely believe they are fighting for independence are actually serving as pawns in a larger game designed to tear the galaxy apart. In his private chambers, he contacts his new master through encrypted channels that bypass all Republic monitoring systems. Sidious appears as a holographic projection, his form wreathed in shadows that seem to move independently of any light source. "You have discovered the scope of our preparations," Sidious observes, his voice carrying notes of approval. "Tell me, my apprentice, what do you make of what you have seen?" The word apprentice sends a chill through Dooku's soul, though he realizes it describes exactly what he has become. "The separatist movement is your creation," he states. "You are engineering a civil war that will consume the Republic." "Not consume," Sidious corrects gently. "Transform. The Republic cannot be reformed through political means, as your own investigations have proven. It must be torn down completely, its corrupt institutions destroyed, its diseased leadership removed. Only then can something pure and strong rise in its place." The hologram gestures and new displays materialize, showing projected casualty figures, economic collapse scenarios, and political realignment models. The numbers are staggering, representing suffering on a scale that defies comprehension. Yet, threading through the data are paths that lead to stability, prosperity, and justice for those who survive the transition. "You offer me complicity in galactic genocide," Dooku says, his voice steady despite the horror of what he contemplates. "I offer you the chance to save civilization itself," Sidious replies. "The Republic dies slowly, corruption spreading like cancer through its body. We can end its suffering quickly and build something better from the ashes, or we can watch it decay over centuries, taking countless worlds down with it. Which choice shows greater compassion?" Standing in his temple quarters, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of the Jedi Order, Dooku realizes that everything he has believed about right and wrong has become infinitely more complex. The clean moral certainties of his youth have given way to calculations of acceptable loss, necessary sacrifice, and the terrible arithmetic of choosing between different forms of suffering. The Force flows around him, no longer offering simple guidance but presenting him with visions of multiple futures. In some, the Republic continues its slow collapse until entire sectors fall into barbarism. In others, swift action creates temporary devastation but ultimately leads to lasting peace. The question is no longer whether to act, but whether he has the strength to bear responsibility for the consequences of action. The gathering takes place in the depths of space, aboard a vessel that exists in no official registry. Representatives from across the galaxy have answered a carefully worded invitation, corporate leaders and planetary governors who share a common frustration with Republic governance. They believe they are attending a conference on economic independence. They do not know they are witnessing the birth of a revolution. Dooku stands before them not as a Jedi Knight, but as Count of Sereno, his noble bearing commanding respect that his former title never could. The transformation is complete now, though the beings assembled in this luxurious chamber cannot see how completely he has embraced his new role. To them, he appears to be exactly what they need, a figure of unquestionable integrity who can give moral authority to their growing rebellion. "My friends," he begins, his cultured voice carrying easily through the chamber, "we gather because we share a common understanding. The Republic that once served the galaxy now serves only itself. We are not rebels seeking to destroy civilization, but patriots working to save it from those who would see it consumed by their own greed." The delegates nod in agreement, their faces reflecting the genuine frustration that has driven them to this moment. Wat Tambor of the Techno Union speaks of industrial regulations that serve core world interests while strangling outer rim development. San Hill of the banking clan describes financial policies that ensure capital flows toward Coruscant while leaving entire sectors impoverished. Newt Gunray recounts trade decisions that benefit Senate cronies at the expense of legitimate commerce. Each grievance is real, each complaint justified by decades of systematic exploitation. What they do not understand is how carefully their frustrations have been cultivated, their legitimate concerns guided toward this moment of decision. Dooku watches their faces as they speak, seeing in their eyes the same desperate hope for change that once burned in his own heart. The discussions continue for hours, touching on economic policies, military preparations, and political strategies. Through it all, Dooku guides the conversation with subtle skill, never directly proposing separation, but allowing the idea to emerge naturally from their shared frustrations. When they finally vote to formally withdraw from the Republic, they believe the decision is entirely their own. But in the private moments between sessions, Dooku meets with individual leaders to discuss matters too sensitive for the larger group. Here, in conversations shielded from recording devices and protected by layers of security, the true scope of their undertaking becomes clear. "The Republic will not let us leave peacefully," observes Pascal Argente of the Corporate Alliance. "They depend too heavily on our resources, our industrial capacity, our financial networks. War is inevitable." "Then we must be prepared for war," Dooku replies, his voice carrying the weight of terrible certainty. "But understand this, we do not fight merely for our own independence. We fight to free the galaxy itself from a system that has become a cancer, eating at civilization's heart." The military preparations that follow dwarf anything the galaxy has seen since the ancient Sith Wars. Droid factories work around the clock, producing armies that exist officially as security forces, but possess capabilities that rival Republic military units. Shipyards that once built commercial vessels now construct warships designed to challenge the Republic Navy. Financial networks that previously managed trade now coordinate the largest military buildup in galactic history. Yet even as he orchestrates these preparations, Dooku struggles with the knowledge of what must come next. In quiet moments aboard his command ship, he communes with force spirits that few living beings could contact. Ancient Jedi whose wisdom transcends the limitations of their successors, beings who have seen empires rise and fall across millennia of galactic history. "You walk a path that leads away from everything you once believed," observes the spirit of a long-dead Jedi Master. Can you be certain that your destination justifies the journey? Certainty is a luxury I surrendered long ago, Dooku replies, his voice heavy with accumulated pain. I can only choose the path that offers the greatest hope for the galaxy's survival, even if that path leads through darkness. The conversations with these ancient spirits reveal truths that chill him to his core. The Jedi Order's corruption runs deeper than even he suspected, its leadership compromised not by deliberate evil, but by something worse, willful blindness to suffering they could prevent. The Republic's decay has accelerated beyond any possibility of reform, its institutions so thoroughly compromised that only complete destruction can clear the way for renewal. Most terrible of all is the revelation that his own fall was anticipated, even desired, by forces that transcend both Jedi and Sith. The galaxy itself requires periodic cleansing, cycles of destruction and renewal that prevent civilizations from stagnating into permanent decay. He has become an instrument of cosmic necessity, a blade wielded by forces beyond his understanding to cut away diseased tissue from the body of galactic civilization. Standing on the bridge of his flagship as separatist fleets gather in hidden systems throughout the Outer Rim, Dooku knows that the point of no return has passed. The war that will consume the Republic has become inevitable, and with it, the transformation of everything he once held sacred. The arena on Geonosis erupts in chaos as lightsabers ignite like stars being born. Dust swirls through the massive Colosseum as Republic forces clash with Separatist defenders, the sound of blaster fire and clashing energy blades creating a symphony of destruction that will echo through galactic history. But for Dooku, standing in the shadows of the arena's upper levels, this moment represents something far more significant than a military engagement. This is the culmination of everything he has worked toward, the moment when the Republic's true nature reveals itself to the galaxy. Below him, Jedi Masters who once preached peace now lead clone armies into battle, their lightsabers cutting down beings who fought only for the right to govern themselves. The hypocrisy burns in his chest like acid, validating every choice he has made since leaving the Order. Master, comes a voice behind him, cultured and deadly. Asajj Ventress approaches, her pale features reflecting the red glow of the battle below. The Jedi have taken our leaders captive. Shall I retrieve them? Dooku studies the tactical displays that show Republic forces advancing through Geonosis's underground factories. The speed and coordination of their assault reveals planning that should have been impossible, intelligence gathering that suggests the Republic knew of separatist activities long before this confrontation. Another piece of evidence supporting his darkest suspicions about the war's true nature. No, he replies after a moment. Let them believe they have achieved victory. Their triumph today will make tomorrow's revelations all the more devastating. The battle rages for hours, but its outcome was never in doubt. This engagement serves purposes beyond mere military objective, purposes that only Dooku and his true master fully understand. Every Republic victory strengthens the Chancellor's emergency powers, every separatist defeat justifies increasingly authoritarian measures. Every casualty on both sides moves the galaxy closer to the transformation that Sidious has orchestrated. In the aftermath, as Republic forces consolidate their hold on Geonosis, Dooku retreats to his private chambers aboard a hidden command ship. Here, surrounded by Sith artifacts and ancient holocrons, he finally contacts the being who has guided his journey from the beginning. Sidious appears as a holographic projection, his satisfaction evident even through the distortion of encrypted transmission. The war has begun exactly as we planned, his master observes. The Republic reveals its true militaristic nature, while the separatists provide the perfect enemy to justify any action. Both sides serve our purposes admirably. At what cost? Dooku asks, and his voice carries the weight of witnessing thousands die for a cause they do not understand. The casualties today were unnecessary. We could have achieved the same strategic objectives without such bloodshed. Sidious's laughter carries notes of cruel amusement. My dear apprentice, you still think like a Jedi, seeking to minimize suffering rather than maximize effectiveness. Every death today serves multiple purposes. It radicalizes survivors on both sides, justifies military expansion, and demonstrates the Republic's willingness to use violence against its own citizens. Compassion is a luxury we cannot afford. The conversation continues deep into the ship's night cycle, touching on strategies that span years and encompass entire sectors of the galaxy. Dooku learns that his role as separatist leader is only one component of a larger design, that the war itself is merely a means to an end rather than the final objective. The true goal remains the complete transformation of galactic civilization, the replacement of corrupt democratic institutions with something more efficient and enduring. Yet as he listens to his master's plans, Dooku feels something cold settling in his chest that has nothing to do with the dark side's influence. The being he serves speaks of galactic transformation as if it were a mathematical equation, calculating acceptable losses and necessary sacrifices with the dispassion of a computer analyzing data. There is no trace of the noble purpose that originally drove Dooku to this path, no recognition of the moral weight carried by their actions. Master, he says carefully, when this war ends and the Republic falls, what assurance do I have that what replaces it will truly serve the galaxy's needs? How do we prevent the new order from becoming as corrupt as the old? The silence that follows stretches long enough to make Dooku wonder if the transmission has been interrupted. When Sidious finally speaks, his voice carries undertones that make the chamber's temperature seem to drop by degrees. You speak as if you believe our partnership to be permanent, he observes, as if the new order will require multiple rulers sharing power. How very democratic of you, my apprentice. How very much like the failed system we work to replace. The Wakshur implication hangs in the recycled air like a blade, and Dooku realizes with crystalline clarity that he has been as manipulated as every other player in this cosmic game. His noble intentions, his genuine desire to save the galaxy from corruption, his willingness to sacrifice everything for a greater good, all of it has been anticipated and exploited by a mind that sees him as nothing more than another useful tool. Standing in his chamber, as starlight streams through the viewports, Count Dooku finally understands the true scope of his fall. He has not become the dark side's willing servant, but its most tragic victim, a good man whose very goodness was weaponized against the galaxy he sought to save. The Clone Wars rage across the galaxy like a fever, consuming worlds and civilizations, with an intensity that defies comprehension. From his command ship moving through the void between battles, Dooku watches entire star systems burn and realizes that every strategic decision he makes serves purposes he never intended. The war has taken on a life of its own, growing beyond the careful parameters that Sidious originally outlined. Each victory brings hollow satisfaction. When separatist forces devastate Republic installations, he sees not military triumph but the destruction of infrastructure that countless beings depend upon for survival. When Republic forces retaliate by bombarding separatist worlds, he witnesses the deaths of civilians who believed in the cause he claimed to represent. The mathematics of warfare have become a mockery of everything he once stood for. In the quiet hours between campaigns, he finds himself returning to memories of his time as a Jedi, searching for the moment when noble intentions transformed into complicity with galactic destruction. The young knight who left Coruscant to investigate pirate raids could never have imagined commanding droid armies in a war that kills millions. Yet each step of that journey had seemed logical at the time, each choice justified by circumstances that demanded action. The revelation comes during a battle above Ryloth as he watches Republic cruisers bombard separatist positions on the planet's surface. The tactical displays show civilian casualties mounting into the hundreds of thousands, refugees fleeing bombardment zones, only to encounter clone trooper patrols that treat them as potential combatants. This is not the surgical removal of corruption that Sidious had promised, but wholesale slaughter disguised as military necessity. Through the Force, he reaches out to touch the minds of dying beings on the planet below. Their final thoughts carry no understanding of the political complexities that brought war to their world, no awareness of the cosmic struggle between order and chaos that supposedly justifies their suffering. They die confused and terrified, victims of forces they cannot comprehend, wielded by leaders they never chose. The casualties are acceptable, General Grievous reports, his mechanical voice devoid of any recognition that those numbers represent actual lives. Republic forces are withdrawing. Ryloth remains under separatist control. Dooku studies the tactical displays that reduce a planet's agony to colored indicators and numerical summaries. Somewhere in those statistics are families torn apart, children orphaned, communities destroyed by weapons that exist only because he gave corporate leaders the moral authority to build them. The weight of accumulated guilt settles on his shoulders like a physical burden. His private communications with Sidious have grown increasingly strained as the war's true scope becomes clear. His master speaks of accelerated timelines and acceptable losses with the enthusiasm of a connoisseur discussing fine wine. The being who once promised galactic salvation now reveals himself as something far more disturbing, a creature that feeds on suffering and chaos while wearing the mask of purposeful transformation. The war proceeds exactly as I have foreseen, Sidious declares during their latest encrypted conversation. Republic forces grow more desperate, more willing to employ extreme measures. The Chancellor's emergency powers expand with each military setback. Soon, the final phase of our plan can begin. "And what of the beings caught between our forces?" Dooku asks, his voice carrying exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical fatigue. "What of the worlds that burn while we pursue political transformation?" "Acceptable. Losses," Sidious replies with casual dismissal. "The galaxy's rebirth requires the destruction of everything weak and corrupt. Those who die in this process were never meant to survive the transition. We are simply accelerating natural selection on a cosmic scale." The callousness of that response strikes Dooku like a physical blow. He realizes that his master views all life as expendable in service of an abstract concept of order, that the noble future they supposedly fight to create exists only in his own imagination. The war has become an end in itself, a mechanism for concentrating power rather than a means of achieving justice. In the solitude of his chambers, surrounded by Sith artifacts that once promised wisdom, Dooku confronts the terrible truth about his transformation. He has not fallen to the dark side through pride or ambition, but through an excess of compassion, a willingness to embrace any method that might alleviate galactic suffering. His very humanity has been weaponized against the galaxy he sought to protect. The Force flows around him, no longer the warm presence of his Jedi youth, but something colder and more demanding. Yet within that darkness he perceives possibilities that his master has not foreseen. Sidious believes he controls every variable, manipulates every player, but there are paths through the labyrinth of causality that even Sith prescience cannot anticipate. Standing before the viewports of his command, ship as distant stars burn with the light of ongoing battles, Count Dooku makes a decision that will echo through the remainder of his days. He cannot undo the damage he has caused or resurrect the dead who perished because of his choices, but he can ensure that his own destruction serves a purpose greater than his master's designs. The galaxy's salvation may still be possible, but it will require a sacrifice that Sidious has not anticipated, a final act of defiance from an apprentice who remembers what it means to serve something larger than power itself. The flagship, Invisible Hand, drifts through space above Coruscant like a dying leviathan, its hull scarred by Republic fire and internal explosions. Within its command bridge, as emergency lights cast everything in shades of red and amber, Count Dooku faces the final moments of a journey that began in noble purpose and led through darkness to something approaching redemption. Across from him stands Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, whose destiny has been as carefully orchestrated as his own. The young Jedi's lightsaber burns with barely contained fury, its blue blade reflecting the conflict that rages within its wielder's heart. Beside Anakin, Obi-Wan lies unconscious, struck down in the opening moments of their confrontation. This was always meant to be a duel between two souls balanced on the edge of transformation. "Your swords, please," Dooku says, his cultured voice maintaining its refinement even as his curved lightsaber hums with deadly energy. "We don't want to make a mess of things in front of the Chancellor." But his words carry layers of meaning that only he fully understands. In the shadows of the bridge stands Palpatine, the mild-mannered politician whose true identity as Darth Sidious has remained hidden from all but his most trusted servants. The irony is exquisite. Anakin fights to rescue the very being who orchestrated his mother's death, manipulated his fears, and now guides him toward the darkness that will consume the galaxy. The lightsaber duel that follows transcends mere physical combat. Each clash of energy blades represents decades of accumulated choices, paths taken and abandoned, noble intentions corrupted by expedience and fear. Dooku fights with the precision of a master swordsman, but his heart is no longer fully committed to victory. In the Force, he perceives the threads of destiny converging on this moment, the terrible necessity of his own defeat. Anakin's style is raw power, barely contained by technique, his emotional turmoil feeding his connection to the Force in ways that both strengthen and corrupt him. Each strike carries the weight of personal loss, the memory of his mother's death, the fear of losing Padme that has been carefully cultivated by Sidious's manipulation. He fights not for justice but for vengeance, not for peace but for the power to prevent suffering through control. "I sense great fear in you, Skywalker," Dooku observes during a momentary pause in their combat. "You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them." The words are intended as psychological warfare, but they carry deeper truth than either combatant realizes. Anakin's greatest weakness is not his lack of skill, but his unwillingness to fully embrace the darkness that would make him truly powerful. That reluctance will not survive the trials that Sidious has prepared for him. The duel's climax arrives with brutal swiftness. Anakin's twin lightsabers move in perfect coordination, severing Dooku's hands with surgical precision. The Count falls to his knees, his curved lightsaber clattering across the deck, plating as pain shoots through his severed limbs. Yet even in defeat, he feels something approaching peace, the satisfaction of a plan finally reaching completion. "Good, Anakin. Good, Palpatine's voice carries across the bridge, filled with paternal approval that makes Dooku's skin crawl. Kill him! Kill him now! The moment hangs suspended in the Force like a crystal about to shatter. Dooku looks up at Anakin's face, seeing in the young Jedi's eyes the same struggle between light and darkness that once consumed his own soul. But where Dooku's fall was gradual, a slow erosion of principle by pragmatism, Anakin's transformation will be sudden and absolute. "I shouldn't," Anakin says, his voice carrying the weight of Jedi teachings that still hold some influence over his actions. "Do it," Palpatine commands, and the quiet authority in his voice reveals the true source of power in this confrontation. As Anakin's lightsaber sweeps toward his neck, Dooku's final thought is not of fear or regret, but of a curious satisfaction. His death will serve multiple purposes. It eliminates a threat to Sidious's plans while simultaneously pushing Anakin deeper into darkness. It removes a witness to the Chancellor's true nature while providing him with a heroic victory to celebrate. And most importantly, it frees the galaxy from the burden of Count Dooku's continued existence. The blade passes through his neck with surgical precision, ending 8 decades of life in an instant. But in that moment of transition between existence and whatever lies beyond, Dooku perceives through the Force the true scope of what he has helped to unleash. The empire that will rise from the Republic's ashes, the decades of tyranny that will follow, the countless worlds that will suffer under Sith rule. Yet threading through that darkness, he glimpses possibilities that even Sidious has not foreseen. Anakin's children, hidden and protected, carrying within them the potential for the galaxy's eventual redemption, the rebellion that will rise from oppression's ashes, the final confrontation between father and son that will break the Sith's hold on the galaxy forever. In death, Count Dooku finally understands that his greatest service to the Force was not in his years as a Jedi or his time as a Sith apprentice, but in this final moment of sacrifice that helps set in motion the events that will ultimately restore balance to the galaxy. In death, Count Dooku finally understands that his greatest service to the Force was not in his years as a Jedi or his time as a Sith apprentice, but in this final moment of sacrifice that helps set in motion the events that will ultimately restore balance to the galaxy.